My name is Ryan Carter, 28 years old, born and raised in Austin, Texas. I always believed that love was simple. You find the right person, you build a life together, and you protect that life no matter what. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I just believed too much in promises. But what happened to me proved one thing. The people you trust the most are the ones who can destroy you the fastest. I met Emily, my wife, 5 years ago in college. She was the textbook definition of sunshine. Blonde hair, green eyes, contagious laugh, and a personality that made everyone feel like they mattered. She lit up every room, and somehow I got lucky enough to be the one she chose. We started dating within a month of meeting. I proposed 2 years later. Our wedding? Beautiful. Tear-jerking vows, families cheering. Everyone kept saying we were the perfect couple, and I believed it, stupidly believed it. But like every story involving betrayal, the cracks were there long before I noticed them. The shift. It started small. Emily became distant, not emotionally upfront anymore. Her phone suddenly became a guarded secret. She took it everywhere, even to the bathroom. When I'd walk near her while she was texting, she'd tilt the screen away. She started wearing more makeup when going to work. She'd come home late, a lot. "It's a big project at the office," she'd say with a tired smile. Emily worked as an interior designer at a high-end firm. Late nights weren't unusual until they became constant. One night I asked, "Are we okay?" She paused too long. "Of course, why wouldn't we be?" But her voice cracked, barely noticeable unless you really listened, and I always listened. The best friend, the one I trusted. Now let me introduce Jason Miller, my childhood friend, my brother in every way that mattered. We met in 3rd grade. We survived middle school bullies together, won basketball championships as a duo, drank way too much on our 21st birthdays, side by side through everything. He was the best man at my wedding. He gave a speech saying, "If anyone hurts Emily or Ryan, they'll deal with me first." Funny how words can become weapons later. Jason visited our house often. At first, it felt normal. He was part of our lives. But recently, he and Emily shared inside jokes I didn't understand. They'd exchange glances, laugh quietly. When I'd walk into the room, silence would drop like a hammer. I kept telling myself, he's my best friend, she's my wife, I'm just overthinking. But that's the problem. We ignore our instincts because trusting feels safer than confronting the truth. The first red flag. One evening, Emily received a notification. Her phone lit up on the counter while she was in the shower. It said, "Last night was unbelievable. I can't stop thinking about you." About you, from a contact saved as SM. My heart stopped. I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to believe my wife was involved with someone else. So I waited. Calmly. Too calmly. When she returned from the shower, I asked, "Who is SM?" Her face drained of color. "Just a new supplier from work. We're collaborating." Her excuse came too fast, too perfect, too rehearsed. I wanted to ask more, but my voice failed. I didn't want to fight. I wanted her truth, but I didn't know how to pull it out of her. The night that broke me. Friday. Emily was working late again. Jason texted me, "Let's grab a few beers tonight. You need to relax, man." But something inside me screamed no. Instead, I said I had work to finish and stayed in. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard a car pull into our driveway. Emily's car. I peeked through the blinds, and my world shattered. Jason stepped out from the passenger seat, both of them fixing their clothes, both of them laughing quietly. Emily kissed him. Not a friendly kiss, not a mistake. A kiss that showed history. She whispered, "Same time tomorrow?" Jason nodded. My knees gave out. 2 people I loved more than life itself, stabbing me with the same blade. The fake innocence. I ran to the bedroom before they came inside. Pretended to be asleep. My heartbeat was loud enough to drown out every thought. Emily slid into bed smelling like someone else's cologne. Jason's scent. I recognized it instantly. "Long night?" I asked, voice steady, somehow. "Yeah, I'm exhausted," she mumbled. Her lies were so casual, and I lay there wondering, how long? How many times? How stupid have I been? My breaking point. The next morning, Jason showed up again, acting normal, laughing, teasing me. I stared at him like he was a stranger. "You good, bro?" he asked. I smiled, practiced and fake. Never better. Inside, my mind screamed, "Why, Jason? Why, Emily? Why us?" But I wasn't ready to explode, not yet. I needed proof. I needed a plan. I needed revenge. This was just the beginning. Because when trust burns, love becomes the most dangerous weapon. The morning after I saw them kissing, everything around me felt unreal, like my life wasn't mine anymore. Like I was watching a movie where the villain wore the faces of the people I loved most. Anger, heartbreak, humiliation, all of it swirled in me like a storm I couldn't escape. But I didn't show it. I woke up, made coffee, and sat at the table like any normal day. Except nothing was normal. Emily walked in, her hair messy, wearing one of my shirts. It made me sick to look at her in something that belonged to me. She rubbed her eyes and said, "Morning, baby." Her voice had no guilt, no hesitation, only lies. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile. If there's one thing betrayal teaches you, it's how to act, how to keep your rage hidden until the right moment. Digging for answers. While Emily was at her big project job, I decided I needed clarity, answers, proof. So I did something I never imagined I would. I snooped. I searched through old backups, photo albums, anything that could show the truth. And slowly, the puzzle started to solve itself. Past photos from months ago showed small touches. Jason's hand lingering on her lower back, the way she smiled at him like he was the only one in the room, her sitting beside him instead of me. I ignored every sign. Not anymore. Next, I checked our phone bill. There it was. Hundreds of calls, thousands of messages, late-night conversations every night. Her most contacted person, Jason Miller. My fists clenched so hard, my nails cut into my palms. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a full-blown affair. Seeking backup. I needed help. Someone on my side. Someone who hated cheaters as much as I now did. I turned to someone I knew would be honest. Rachel Bennett, Emily's co-worker and close friend. The kind of friend who sees everything. I called her. "Rachel, can we talk about Emily?" There was a long pause. "You found out, didn't you?" My heart froze. "How long have you known?" "Months. I tried to warn Emily, but she said she was finally happy." "I'm so sorry, Ryan." That sentence hit me like a bullet. Finally happy? So I never made her happy? Was I just a placeholder? A convenience? I bit back the pain. I needed facts, not feelings. "Do you know who the guy is?" Silence. "Jason Miller," she whispered. Hearing his name confirmed felt like another betrayal all over again. Rachel sighed heavily. "Emily said she and Jason were meant to be, that you wouldn't understand." I could barely breathe. The plan begins. If Emily wanted him and Jason wanted her, fine. But they would lose everything they built on lies. I decided to record every message, every call log, every receipt for secret hotel rooms, every late-night arrival times from the security camera I installed that morning, hidden inside a porch light. It captured everything perfectly. I wasn't going to confront them until I could destroy their lies in one hit. pretending to love her again. That night, Emily came home late. Again. Red lipstick smudged, hair slightly messy. She kissed me softly. Her lips tasted like guilt and someone else's hands. She held me tighter than usual, maybe because cheaters think affection can hide betrayal. "I love you, Ryan," she whispered. I almost laughed. "I love you too," I said instead. Fake. Every word, every breath. But I needed her to believe I was clueless. The slip-up. 2 days later, Jason came over for a game night. Just me, him, and Emily like old times. She sat beside him, too close. Their legs touched under the table. They thought I didn't notice, but I did. When Emily went to grab snacks, Jason leaned forward. "You seem distracted lately. Everything cool?" His audacity was unbelievable. "Couldn't be better," I replied. He smirked, like he already owned my wife. I imagined smashing the beer bottle across his skull. But no, not yet. Let him feel safe. Let him enjoy the illusion. Because when the truth hits, I wanted him to fall the hardest. The unexpected ally. Later that week, Rachel texted me. "Emily is staying late tonight. Again." I replied, "I know." She asked, "What's your plan?" I sent 2 words. "Watch me." I had enough evidence to expose them publicly, to humiliate them the way they humiliated me. But I wanted one more thing. I wanted Emily to see herself through my eyes, to understand the pain she caused, and to know I wasn't the fool anymore. A dangerous idea. At 10 p.m. sharp, Emily texted, "Still working, don't wait up, heart." I stared at the message, cold and calm. Then I replied, "I'll stop by with dinner." It took her 12 minutes to respond. "No! You don't have to. I'll eat later." 12 minutes. She was panicking, which meant she wasn't at work, which meant it was time. I grabbed my jacket, picked up takeout from our favorite restaurant, and headed to her office building, not to catch them, but to begin the end. The hotel. They weren't at her office, but I knew exactly where to look. The Willow Grove Hotel, the same place I found on the bank statements. Room 214. I stood outside the door, my heart pounding, every emotion turning into fire. I took a deep breath. Then I knocked. Emily's voice from inside. "Who is it?" I stayed silent. Jason opened the door, and when he saw me, every drop of color vanished from his face. I had rehearsed this scene 1,000 times in my head. How I would walk in, how I would rip the truth out of them like a Band-Aid, how their faces would crumble and I'd finally get the release I needed. Reality, of course, never goes exactly the way you plan. Jason froze in the doorway like a deer in headlights. Emily stood behind him, wrapped in a hotel sheet, her hair wet and wild, mascara tracking down her cheeks from the panic she'd felt when she opened the door and realized the movie had a new ending. I remember the moment in detail. The soft hum of the hotel air conditioning, the squeeze of the paper bag with the takeout I'd bought while my head felt empty, the way the fluorescent hallway light drew shadows on Jason's jaw. He stepped back instinctively, as if the floor had suddenly bitten him. "Ryan?" Jason's voice sounded small, thin, like it belonged to someone who had misplaced his spine. I set the bag down on the bed as calmly as I could, hands steady. My anger was a strange, disciplined thing now. Not a burst of heat, but a cold, precise engine. "Yeah," I said. "Ryan." Emily's face collapsed. She reached for me, instinctively, and then stopped. as if she could feel the life she had been living between us sliding out under her feet. Jason smirked, the same arrogant, crooked grin I'd seen 1,000 times at bars, at games, when we were idiots together and the world was small. "We can talk about this, man. No," I cut him off. "There's nothing to talk about." He opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. He took a step forward, the kind of step people take when they want to assert dominance and don't realize they're stepping into quicksand. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," I said. I reached into my jacket and took out my phone. The same phone that had been recording everything for weeks now. The motel check-ins, the late-night texts, the receipts. I hit play on a recording. A man's voice, Jason's voice, filled the small room. "Yeah, I'll see you at 10. Tell her to be ready. Don't let him in the room," the audio said. Casual, undeniable. Jason's smirk fell like a curtain. He lunged at me, not with fists, but with that rude need to make this go away. He shoved me in the shoulder. I pushed him back. For a second, we were two men in a ridiculous pissing match in some cheap hotel, but then he hit my shoulder hard enough that the takeout bag skittered across the carpet. I didn't swing. I didn't let myself. I wanted the evidence to do the talking. I wanted him to be the one to step into his own ruin. Emily started crying. I remember the sound like a stone thrown into still water, circuits of grief rippling out. "Ryan, please don't make this bigger." "It's already big," I said softly. And that was the truth. It had been bigger than me for months. Bigger because of every lie, every small theft of trust, every inside joke meant to exclude me. Bigger because the people who'd built lives around him would eventually have to reconcile with the man they'd chosen to admire. I left the room without a dramatic flourish. I could have screamed, accused, struck. Human theater makes such devices feel necessary, but I had a plan. The theater that would matter was not the hotel, but their lives, his job, his friends, the reputation he traded on. I walked back to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and texted 2 names. Rachel, the coworker who'd already told me some of the truth. Maya, my sister's friend who owed me more than sympathy. She owed me discretion, and she knew how to move in the world. They were my first witnesses. Within 20 minutes, they were part of the orbit. Rachel had scanned the audio and receipts, and her eyes had the look of someone who'd always been ready to cut ties from the dishonest. She agreed to be at the office the next morning. Maya, practical as ever, said she'd help me assemble a package. Make it cold, make it clear. The world responds to files it can digest. I didn't sleep that night. I cleaned my phone, backed up files to a secure cloud, labeled everything neatly. Evidence is not a messy thing. It's a tool. I learned to love its neatness. The receipts from the Willow Grove, the message threads where Jason reassured Emily to keep things secret, the calendar invites that had been disguised as work dinners. I organized them by date and time. I exported the metadata so that anyone with a modicum of knowledge could see how consistent the deception had been. I knocked on Emily's office door. She looked pale and small. Her eyes avoided mine like a guilty animal's. I didn't want to make a scene in front of her coworkers, so I said, quiet and controlled, "We need to talk tonight. Don't make plans." She nodded like she'd been given a verdict rather than a request. What came next was the part I'd rehearsed in a different life. Exposure without theatrics. I could have gone viral in a heartbeat, posted everything, let the internet do the awful work. But I knew how social mobs work. They can lift truth or drown it in hysteria and then shred reputations without due process. So I took a different route. Step 1, HR. The company Emily worked for took client relationships seriously and hated scandals. I created a concise PDF that contained the essential facts, a cover letter, a timeline, audios, receipts, screenshots. I addressed it to HR and the CEO. I included a note, "We are not looking for multiple headlines. We are asking that professional standards be upheld. We are prepared to cooperate fully." That last line mattered. It made it clear this wasn't a petty spat. It was formal.
Step 2, leverage. I drafted an anonymous tip to a local journalist known for sober reporting on workplace misconduct. He was the kind of reporter who didn't sensationalize. He connected dots. I didn't send everything. I sent enough to pique interest with an offer to provide more upon confidentiality. Step 3, the direct social route. I reached out quietly to people who mattered in Jason's social circle. I sent short, civil emails to a handful of colleagues with a single line. You should know what's been happening on company nights. If you want to see the evidence, I'll be available. The men on the other end had to decide whether to protect a friend or to protect integrity. People choose themselves most of the time. That's what I was counting on. By lunchtime, the gossip currents were flowing. It was subtle at first, half jokes at the office, an HR rep asking a manager for a meeting, a client pinging Emily to reschedule. But something else happened that day. The man I thought would protect Jason from any consequence, our mutual island of a friend group, fractured. I watched the play out like a slow-motion wreck. Friends who drank together and laughed together now felt the uneasy cough of conscious awareness. People's tolerance for liars is a small thing. Once the air smells wrong, they move away. At 3 p.m, I got a message from the journalist, "We have enough for a cautious piece. Can we meet?" I said yes. At 5:30, we met in a nondescript coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. He'd read the files. He'd listened to the audio. He leaned back and said the words that felt like both knife and balm. "This is solid. We'll run a fact-based story tomorrow morning, no accusations without the receipts. You did this the right way." That phrase stuck with me for weeks after. The right way. Doing it correctly meant I deny him his comfort and avoid becoming the caricature of a betrayed man raging online. Doing it correctly meant I stayed on the moral high ground even as I stripped him of the rest. The next morning's article was as clean and merciless as an obituary. It didn't scream, it presented. "Local manager implicated in multiple affairs with colleague's wife," the headline said.
Timestamps and included quotes from HR confirming they'd launched an inquiry. The piece had no slander, no theatricality. It let the facts do their work. The fallout was immediate. Jason's phone imploded with calls. His manager scheduled a meeting. Clients emailed. A few friends texted quick apologies, the kind people offer when they realize they've been dancing with a liar. Emily's name was there too. Not as much, the piece was careful, but the seeds were planted. Jason tried to spin. He called me and left a voicemail that read more like a plea than a defense. "I messed up. You don't understand how confused I was. It didn't mean—" His voice broke in that exact way liars' voices do when they realize the cadence of control has shifted. He called again to beg. He showed up at my building and pounded on my door like a man who thought threats and apologies were currency. I did not open. Instead, I let the law do its work. HR suspended him the following day pending an investigation. The company pulled him from client-facing duties. The social scaffolding he'd climbed on was removed, brick by brick. If you're hungry for the moment of public humiliation, it did happen, but not the way I'd imagined. It was quieter. A client meeting canceled, a LinkedIn post removed. A manager who once toasted his good humor now avoided eye contact. That slow, cold fade is the kind of social death that burns different. There's no caption, no trending moment, just the quiet rerouting of favors and invitations. Emily called me. She asked if we could meet. Her voice sounded raw, like a stripped wire. "Can we talk?" she said. "Please, I want to explain." I met her at a neutral place, a small diner that smelled like coffee and burnt sugar. She looked smaller than she had in that hotel doorway. Her eyes were hollowed by exhaustion and regret. "Why?" I asked, the single question that didn't need long answers. She inhaled. "I don't know, it just happened. Jason made me feel seen. He told me things he shouldn't have. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I didn't plan to hurt you. The words were rehearsed. I'd heard variants before. Doesn't mean they weren't true in some small, cowardly way. People are messy. They lie because they're lazy. They fall because they're human, and they hide because shame is heavy. I told her what I'd planned to tell her in 1,000 different ways, that forgiveness could be possible, but it had to be earned and not bought in hotel rooms. I told her the truth about the way this had wiped the floor from under me. She cried, begged, offered to change. All the things cheaters do when the scaffolding collapses. There were moments I wanted to smash my fist into the table and shout that the only thing she deserved was the full inquiry and the social ostracism she'd helped craft. But I didn't. I had to keep my edge clean and exact. Vengeance had a taste, and it was nothing like rage. Revenge was a long, slow process. It didn't come in a single hit. Just when things felt like they were settling into the new normal of investigations and whispered apologies, I got a file in the mail. No return address, thick envelope. Inside were printed photographs, images of me with a woman I did not recognize, taken at a cafe months ago. She was smiling, and in one of the prints, our hands were close together. The caption on one read, in handwriting I didn't recognize, "Seeing him with someone else." Isn't that funny? My stomach dropped. It hit me on a scale I hadn't anticipated. This was not just retribution. Someone was trying to set me up. I thought of the way the internet had chewed up Jason, the way reputations had turned like windmill blades. If someone planted photographs with fabricated contexts and leaked them, a narrative could be spun where I looked worse than both of them combined. I folded the photos carefully and slipped them into my pocket. My head filled with 1,000 questions. Who sent them? Why now? And most importantly, was someone else playing a broader game? Setting me up so they might distract attention from themselves? I recognized the pattern of escalation. Cheaters escalate, then their enemies escalate. But this looked like a different hand altogether. A puppet master flicking fingers in the dark. I called Maya. I said, "Someone mailed me photos." Her voice tightened immediately. "Don't post anything. Don't react. I'll come over." When she arrived, she sat across from me at the kitchen table and looked at the images as if they were small, poisonous animals. "Someone wants to muddy the water. Either to spare him by muddying your name or to take down both of you. We have to be smarter." The thought cooled me oddly. Up until now, my actions had been direct and righteous, exposing lies, collecting evidence, letting systems move. Now there was a new variable, an unknown actor who wanted chaos. That could only mean one thing. The game had gotten bigger, or someone else was trying to hide something far uglier than an affair. As part 3 closed, I sat in the dim of my living room, the photographs spread before me, the city lights a smear on the horizon. I felt the tug of two instincts. One that wanted a simple end, a clean resolution where liars were punished and the honest got to sleep, and another that saw the world as an onion layered with secrets and understood I might have only peeled off the first skin. I folded the photos back into the envelope, marked them, and put them in a safe place. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more questions. I would answer them with the same cool precision that had brought me this far. But something had changed. The war I thought I was waging, between me, Emily, and Jason, now had another player. And that meant whatever came next would be larger, meaner, and more dangerous than anything I'd planned for.
When the envelope hit my mailbox, the world tilted. I'd thought I understood the battlefield. Me, Emily, Jason. The rules were clear. Gather proof, expose the lie, let the system do its work. But this was different. Someone had slid evidence into the narrative to make me the villain. It felt like being stabbed with my own knife. For a few days after I found those photos, sleep was a stranger. I grew accustomed to the cold thrill of scanning my inbox every hour, as if the next message would tell me who wanted to drown me. The photos weren't great fabrications. They were believable enough, printed in glossy ink, cropped to suggest intimacy in a way that could look innocent to an untrained eye. One showed me laughing with a woman at a cafe. Another captured me from behind, hands near hers. The handwriting on the back? Isn't it funny? Juvenile and cruel. I knew the first rule of damage control. Don't react publicly. The second rule, find out who did this before they can do it again. So I did two things immediately. I called Maya, and I called Rachel. Two friends who would keep their heads in a mess. Maya showed up with coffee and the kind of expression people wear when they're about to get down and dirty with logistics. "You didn't respond to his texts?" she asked. "No," I said. "I haven't touched my phone, not since I found the photos." "Good," she said simply. "We'll trace it." We started with the obvious, the postmark. Whoever sent the envelope had either been sloppy or confident. The postmark was faint, but it was a start. A small processing facility 20 miles away, the kind of place people use when they want a degree of anonymity. I called the facility and pressed for surveillance footage. They wanted a subpoena. That's the problem with these things. The law is a ladder that takes time to climb while the other side runs loose. Rachel had an idea. "Elliot," she said, "my cousin knows a private investigator. He helped a friend catch an unfaithful partner 2 years ago. He's discreet and good with digital traces." I remember the first thing Elliot said when I laid out the situation. "Someone's trying to muddy the narrative. They want you to look guilty, and they're sloppy enough to leave a trail if you want it ugly enough." He smiled the sort of smile detectives wear, equal parts empathy and impatience. We hired Elliot that afternoon. He started where any professional does. He didn't leap to conspiracy, he gathered facts. He ran the envelope through a lab for fingerprints and DNA. He pulled the glossy paper for printer marks, specific banding patterns that can indicate the make and model of a printer. He traced the postmark to the facility and asked the facility for camera footage. The facility stalled. But Elliot had methods. He would return to the facility at night and chat up a clerk, buy him a lunch, learn the rhythms of the place. People are predictable when someone buys them a sandwich. While Elliot worked his quiet magic, I kept my days structured. I didn't want to hand the other side anything. At work, I stayed composed. At home, I organized the files, rehearsed my statements, and resisted the urge to call Emily in panic. I wanted facts when I spoke to her. Panic makes you taste bad. 2 days later, Elliot found a sliver, the kind that makes a clean case when you have the patience to follow it. The glossy paper matched a batch of prints from a boutique print shop in town. The shop kept logs of large orders, and one of the orders corresponded with a cash transaction the week before. The camera footage from the shop showed a hooded figure dropping off prints at dusk. The footage was grainy, but the cadence of the strides and the profile, broad shoulders and a distinctive limp in the left step, gave Elliot an angle. He ran the limp against public footage on social media. A match came back in an hour. It was Jason. When Elliot told me, I felt the world compress and then expand with ice. Jason had always been cowardly in the petty ways, jokes that cut, passive-aggressive texts, but I never imagined him climbing the ladder to something like this. He'd already betrayed me in bed. Now he was trying to bury me in ink. I didn't want to jump to the courthouse and scream it out loud. Elliot told me to breathe. He said, "Let him trip. We need a smoking gun." He suggested we get proof of Jason's payment for the prints. He dug deeper and found a pattern of small transactions that moved through a chain of services: gift cards, digital wallets, a Cash App deposit from an account Jason used infrequently. The money trail was messy, exactly the kind of thing men who believe they can buy silence leave behind. The next move was harder, but necessary. Confrontation. Not at a motel, not in a bar, but somewhere public and visible. Elliot and I agreed the best place would be his office, the one place Jason still had a modicum of respect. If Jason had paid to frame me, he would be dumb enough to keep some trace close. pride makes people sloppy. That afternoon, I timed it perfectly. I walked into Jason's office building with the look of a man who had been hollowed out by betrayal, but who now carried the calmness of someone focused on law and order. I asked reception for him. He was in a meeting, they said. Fine. I waited in the lobby and didn't look like a prowler.
Up in the lobby, on the pretense of installing better reception cameras, recorded the shove. You can't replace footage with charm. HR put Jason on administrative leave pending an investigation. It felt like a small, bureaucratic victory. But I knew the danger wasn't over. Criminal framing and reputation abuse were ugly games because they force you to defend yourself twice, legally and socially. The print shop footage and the cash trail were persuasive, but people love plausible deniability. He could call friends and get them to believe that I'd set the whole thing up. It would be his word against mine, except now we had receipts. For a moment, one small, disorienting moment, I felt victorious. Then, the envelope arrived again. This one was different, heavier, clinical, professional. Inside, carefully wrapped, was a small USB drive. No note, just that plain, cold device. Elliot whispered when I showed him. People use these to create rat traps. They'll load a video, a deepfake, something designed to make you look worse. Do not plug it into your home computer. I admired the drive like a small, sinister present and felt the old familiar panic. I wanted to destroy it. Elliot put it in a Faraday bag, electrically isolated pouch, and told me we'd take it to his lab. If it's a deep fake, we'll detect it. If it's a planted clip of you, we'll trace its metadata, he said. 2 days later, Elliot called with results. It's not a deepfake, he said. It's worse. Someone filmed it with a phone and edited it to make you look, well, compromising. But there are artifacts in the file, the compression pattern, the EXIF data left by the uploader. The good news is those give us a trail. He paused. We traced the upload IP to a co-working space downtown. The user logged in with a Wi-Fi voucher, purchased with, wait for it, a gift card purchased at the same print shop. My chest tightened until it felt like a vice. Jason's blueprint was sloppy and sprawling. He'd paid for prints and upload services. He hadn't covered his footprints well enough. The co-working space's footage showed someone, hood up, sliding the USB into a laptop and uploading the video. The hands were broad. The limp from the earlier camera was visible. Jason's posture matched in a single frame where he scanned the room before leaving. Elliot sat across from me and said gently, "You have what you need." We took everything to Detective Hargrove, the detective who'd been friendly enough to pretend I wasn't a crazy man and professional enough to care about evidence. Hargrove's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the chain. He asked for more time to coordinate with cybercrimes and suggested a quiet warrant for Jason's devices. The warrant went out that afternoon. He was picked up at his apartment after a very loud scuffle with neighbors who watched him box up his life. The officers escorted him, cuffed, and he looked like someone who would finally run out of hiding places. He tried to play the victim for the cameras, but the camera shots were quick and unforgiving. When the police searched his apartment, they found the print receipts, the gift cards used to fund uploads, even the empty envelopes. They found, tucked under a loose floorboard, a stack of photographs of me with other women, cropped, annotated. It was obscene in its calculation. It looked like a small criminal operation, run out of the comfort of a life that had benighted others. He was charged with conspiracy to commit defamation and with harassment. The DA pushed forward because the paper trail was ugly and coherent. People with resources hate messy evidence. The system moves faster when you hand it a clean file. At the arraignment, Jason sat pale and furious. He looked at me as if I'd stolen the last of his dignity. I felt nothing for him by then but a kind of cold satisfaction. Justice was not the same as revenge, but it felt like a step in a long, necessary direction. After his arrest, I expected calm. The phone calls died down.
The emails slowed. Social media, which had been a raging river, settled into a dull stream. For the first time in months, I slept for more than a few hours at a stretch. But the dangerous thing with a cleanup like this is that it rarely addresses the root. Jason's arrest took him out of the immediate cycle of attacks, but someone else, not him or not alone, had mailed the photos to begin with. Was he the only hand in that work? Elliot's instincts had multi-hand involvement. The log of payments suggested others had been hired for smaller jobs. The problem of motive had a murky center. Who benefits from making me look guilty? Who wants the truth to be muddied? 2 days before the grand jury hearing, a woman named Leela reached out to me. She left a note slipped under my apartment door and a number. "If you want the full story, meet me by dawn at the pier." My first instinct was to ignore it. My second was to go. People who show up in alleys are either desperate or dangerous. I wasn't naive, but I wanted to know who had fed the engine. At 5:30 a.m., the pier smelled like river and cold metal. Leela was there, bundled in a parka, face shadowed. She looked like someone who spent years in the background. When she spoke, her voice was low, urgent. "Jason didn't act alone. There's someone else. Someone who wanted you out, someone high up at his firm. I used to do admin there. I copied an email chain once and saved it. I couldn't tell anyone then. I'm telling you now because he started talking about you like you were a problem that needed to be solved." She extended a folder. Inside were emails, thin and folded. Someone in management had been concerned about a pending promotion and wanted the smear to keep the idea of scandal away. The clients were high value, and the firm could not afford risk. My throat tightened. A manager. That explained motive on a larger scale. If a leader feared that Jason's exposure would expose other patterns or complicate a client relationship, they might have chosen to neutralize the problem by muddying the whistleblower. Power has a way of bending privacy rules when profit is on the line. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Because you're the one who could blow this open cleanly," she said. "You expose Jason, people assume the moral arc. But you expose someone higher up, that's messy. That's why I'm scared." The folder trembled in my hands. It was heavier than the paper felt. When I read the emails in private, they were chilling in their administrative efficiency. Discussions about controlling narratives, suggestions to monitor incoming complaints, and a line I'll never forget. "If this can be deflected onto the spouse, do it quietly." It was like watching a playbook for damage control that dehumanized people into variables. I thought about Emily again, the woman who had lied, and yet had been the one most harmed by the chain. I thought about Jason, small, petty, violent, and about the faces in management who thought a name on a spreadsheet mattered more than the wreckage behind it. I left the pier feeling physically tired in a new way, less raw and more wary. This wasn't a simple affair anymore. This was a strategic suppression operation that used men like Jason as hands. Someone with the language of corporate control had weaponized personal shame. We brought Leela's emails to Detective Hargrove and to Elliot. They corroborated little things, phone numbers, meeting locations. Hargrove's jaw tightened as he read, the kind that tightening that means a person knows the next steps will be ugly and necessary. We were past revenge now. This had become about accountability, on a scale I hadn't prepared for. The trial was no longer just about Jason's infidelity and his petty revenge. It was beginning to include a corporate attempt to bury scandal under smear campaigns. That meant subpoenas, depositions, sworn testimony, and the slow grind of institutional policing. As Part 4 closes, I'm sitting in my car outside the courthouse steps with the folder with Leela's emails at my feet. The city hums around me like unaware machinery. In a few hours, I'll walk inside and testify about the smear and the setup. I'll hand over receipts and prints and the print shop footage. I'll watch the people who helped me lie unravel in small legal motions. I'm not naive about the road ahead. Powerful people do not relinquish influence quietly. They twist facts, hire lawyers with polished teeth, and murmur about reputations. But I hold something they don't. A record. Amid the fog of betrayal, that record is a clean, hard line. Tomorrow, I'm no longer just a betrayed husband. I'm a witness to a larger system that decided my life was expendable for the sake of convenience. And if the system thinks it can wear me down, it hasn't met me in a room with a montage of receipts and a plan. The only thing left is to walk in and speak the truth into the room where they think they get to decide who matters.
I didn't sleep the night after the bombshell email from HR. I sat alone in my living room, feeling the weight of every choice that had brought me to this point. The pain, the betrayal, the careful planning, the patience it took not to destroy everything in one explosive moment. This was the finish line, and I wanted it to hurt them the way they hurt me, slowly. The morning of the final HR hearing arrived like a judgment. I walked into the corporate building in a sharp black suit, not because I wanted to impress them, but because I wanted them to know I wasn't bending anymore. When I entered that conference room, I saw them both. Jason, head down, chin trembling, wearing a suit 2 sizes too big for his shrinking confidence. Emily, eyes red, makeup barely holding, clutching a tissue like a lifeline that kept slipping away. Her boss, Crawford, rigid as a statue, the self-appointed god of his tiny corporate temple, who finally looked like he realized someone higher was watching. 2 HR directors sat across from them. Thick files, evidence copies, my evidence. This was my stadium. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply laid out the truth, piece by piece. The hotel receipts, the appointment logs, the messages hidden under contact names like client dinner, the audio of Jason laughing about how he would teach Ryan not to trust so blindly. Every word tightened a noose. The HR lead turned to Jason. "Do you dispute any of this?" Jason's face fell apart. I never meant for it to go so far. That's a yes or a no, she snapped. Jason looked at me. His mouth opened, waiting for mercy. I gave him silence. Finally, he whispered, "No." Crawford tried to slide into damage control mode. "I think we can all agree this is a private matter that I cut him clean. You pressured my wife into late-night meetings. You approved false expense charges for your little client outings. You signed for them." Crawford visibly stiffened. "And here's the wild part." I leaned forward. "You weren't only covering for them." I placed another envelope on the table. Inside, proof of his own affairs with 2 other employees, paid with corporate funds. Hotel receipts, photos, screenshots. A second scandal, even dirtier than the first. Crawford's face drained of all blood. "You think I only dug into them?" I asked. "No, I dug into the rot." One HR director almost smiled, the kind of smile that appears when someone realizes they've been handed a career-making story. She whispered something to the other rep. He immediately left the room. Crawford tried one last pathetic attack. "You'll ruin your wife's life with this." I stared right into him. She ruined mine first. The dominoes fall. Jason was suspended indefinitely pending legal review. Emily was placed on forced leave, investigation pending. And Crawford? Terminated, on the spot. Security escorted him out of the building like trash day. He didn't look back. Cowards never do. Emily ran after me as I walked toward the elevators. "Ryan, please, I will spend the rest of my life fixing this. I love you." I turned slowly. "Love doesn't do what you did." She choked on a sob. "Don't leave me." "I already did. You just didn't notice." The elevator doors closed between us like the curtain to a final act. Last loose ends. That night I sat across from my lawyer with a pen in my hand. The divorce papers felt cold, sharp, fair. She would get nothing she earned through deception. Jason's company friends abandoned him.
No one gambles their career for a cheater who also drags bosses into scandals. His LinkedIn status changed quietly, seeking new opportunities. But opportunities don't call back when your search history screams workplace affair scandal. As for Emily, she called a lot, apologizing, crying, claiming she made the worst mistake of her life. Maybe she did, but that was her lesson, not my burden. I didn't block her number. That would mean I still cared. I just stopped answering. The final punch. 1 week later, the article went national. Headline: Corporate manager fired after affair and misuse of company funds. Whistleblower provides evidence. It wasn't just the affair anymore. It was corporate fraud. It was harassment of a subordinate. It was multiple careers burned at once. The comment section was brutal. People always want a villain, and now they had 3. Somewhere out there, Jason read those comments. Somewhere out there, Crawford polished his resume while lawyers gathered like sharks. Somewhere out there, Emily cried into pillows she ruined herself. And me? I slept. For the first time in months. The true ending. Revenge isn't anger. Revenge is clarity. It's waking up without anxiety. It's not questioning whether someone's late-night text is innocent. It's freedom from betrayal. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just pulled back the curtain so the world could watch, and I walked away with everything they tried to take from me: my self-respect, my peace, my future. The past was broken. The future was wide open. And this time, I'd choose the right people to walk into it with me.